Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. This is the TikTok edition. And on this edition right now, I have with me 12 Kyle. He calls himself Kyle, but he has a podcast that's really awesome called 12 Kyle Podcast. Please, 12 Kyle, real quick, do the introduction from your show. Let everybody know a little bit about you, and we'll go from there.
Hey, man, first and foremost, man, glad to be here, JR. This is 12 Kyle from the 12 Kyle Podcast. Like I said, glad to be here. Make sure you check out, download, subscribe to my podcast. It's called the 12 Kyle Podcast. It's a weekly podcast. It drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time, I drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight. What you will get on that podcast is authentically me. I like to talk about a lot of nostalgia type things, you know, because I came from an era before the internet. A lot of music talk, sometimes some sports talk, but just an overall good conversation. And the thing I like to say about the podcast is like this: once you hear one episode, I promise you, you'll listen to another.
All right. So the crazy thing about your show is that me and you got introduced by this so-called King, King Germ from Pod and Save Our Marriage, formerly of Frocast. And the thing is that hooked me to your show was, like I said, the nostalgia, because where I was born in 1985, right? It's like 1985 to 1990. That puts me at 5 years old, but I grew up through the 90s, and you were a adult through the 90s. So so the crazy thing is like we remember Sam Goodies and different things like that, things that went on inside the music, and I think that we had the purest form of music then. And from that point on, it was just like things got crazy and music is what it is today. But with you, the hint of nostalgia that you throw out there reminds me of stuff from my youth. So that's one thing I always got to give you credit for. And then you run around with this guy. What is that guy's name? He's from up there, Northern Virginia, DC area. What do they call him?
Eclectic.
Eclectic. Yeah, eclectic. And eclectic has some eccentric views and some outlandish views on music too. Well, he does, and he's a bit of a comic relief on your show
For
when y'all do
sure.
things together. And the other cool element is you invite other podcasters on when they're themed to what you want to do. So you had some West Coast guys on, some guy that calls himself Great, Baylor, and then some guy
Yep.
that calls himself some guy that randomly calls himself Uncle,
Yep.
Mr. Dolomite from Too Much Game Podcast. And the thing is like you bring out the best in people. You got an interview style, like you got this old radio style, like Donnie Simpson to a degree. I know and that's something I like from you, and I've been stealing a little bit
Appreciate it.
from you.
Appreciate it.
And one claim that's out there that is because me and you are part of the Billionaire Podcast Club. They say that we're rich. I want to see what that is too. Look, I'm filming in my room right now, like in my office or whatever. But I'm not. I think. Well, I do got an office, so
See, yeah,
never mind.
exactly. You got an office.
So either way, so 12. Let me ask you this: when it comes to podcasting, what made you move over to podcasting from what you were doing originally? Tell them what you were doing originally.
Originally, I had an internet radio show called the 12 Radio Show, and I did that. It was a live show, call in for 2 hours on Blog Talk Radio. I did that for 5 years, JR, every Wednesday night from 9 to 11. And it was really, really dope. And I really enjoyed the interaction between myself and the people that called in and people that listened in our group chat or whatever like that. But what I found was over a period of time, there were more people that couldn't listen live. And so I looked at the numbers, and there were more people listening, especially toward the back end of that 5 years, probably the last in year four. There were more people listening on the back end. So I got the idea of, and one of my boys, in fact, Eclectic he said, why don't you just change it to a podcast? Make it a podcast. That way people can listen at their leisure. When they're walking their dogs, or when they're going to choir rehearsal, I don't know, wherever. So I just decided to move it from the 12 Radio Show, which was a live show, to the 12 Kyle Podcast, and that was 2016. And I've been rocking ever since, man. Last year hit 500 episodes. So
Right.
it's been moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really impressive. So the thing is how did you end up in this podcast circle that we're in? Um, with all these podcasters, because this is a cool thing that we have going on. We have an actual group of us. We're all friends in this group, and we don't. It ain't like we group message each other. Everybody's got tiers with me. You know, I got levels. You just moved up a level because King Germ, whatever. But the thing is, it's like, how did you get all these working relationships with everybody going? Because see, with me, I'm kind of like a tyrant. I just come through and I tell you, yo, it's time. And people just come do the show with me like I'm Diddy, and I did say Diddy, not the Diddy that's out there doing that crazy shit. But people just do the shows with me, and they're outlandish, and I do them offbeat because I'm the Tavis Smiley podcast. So how do you work these relationships with everybody and keep them going?
Well, I think it's just really just about being real. Real recognize real. I mean, that's an old 90s saying, but I truly believe in that. And I tell people all the time, what you hear on my podcast is me. So 12 Kyle and Kyle are the same people. It's
Okay.
not like I turn the mic off and I become somebody else. And I'm cool and I'm laid back and I like to do my thing. And being a content creator is something I've been doing even before the podcast started, because I used to write in my blog, and that's where I met a lot of people, and then friendships and relationships just kind of built from there. But it's I love the talk, obviously, and this podcast game has been something that has allowed me to do that and connect with a lot of people. So it's been cool.
Okay. And one other thing is like, because I got to give a quick shout out to King Germ about this. King Germ treats himself like he's Bill Walsh, and he's got this like podcasting tree that podcasters just fall off. And he tries to stay humble, but closed door, he's like, I'm the one that brought all these people together, blah blah blah. How do you feel about King Germ?
Hey man, Germ is a funny guy. Germ is a funny guy, and we've become good friends very relatively quickly. Especially considering the fact that I've never met him before physically.
Right.
Um,
Nobody
and,
has.
and yeah, and I'm one of the few people that know what he looks like. But
Mm.
yeah, I know what Germ looks like. And I even invited Germ, and Germ invited me, and his wife, his lovely wife, to a game of spades. Now, Germ don't want to smoke, so like me and my wife, we literally have not lost a spades game in like 10 years. So
Ooh.
Germ don't want to smoke, but when he comes to Atlanta, or whenever we make it down to his part of the Florida, we will engage in a game of spades. But yeah, Germ,
Ace high?
what's that?
Ace high?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We could do it whatever, however, whichever way anybody wants to play.
Y'all
We
play
versa.
sandbags?
No, we don't do all that. We straight up. We
So
go.
y'all
We
play
go.
in Virginia. We call that straight struggle. That's what we call it in West
Yep.
Virginia.
Yep. Straight. We get straight to it. And I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
we undefeated. So I mean, taking on all comers. But to answer your question, man, German's good people, man. We either talk or text like every other day. So like
Right.
today we talk maybe about a half hour.
Yeah, in the same. And I wonder how he keeps a wife, because he talks to all these podcasts because he's got a schedule. Now, enough about him. Let's go into some detail. What is the pinnacle episode inside of 12 Cal podcast? Now, I'll tell you, with me, it was the Heavy D episode.
Okay.
Not because I'm light skinned, because technically, after what I heard last night, you're light skinned too.
No, I'm
But
not light skinned.
but we're not going to even bring it up on this. But later on, we will be having a podcast about that. It's been decided by the podcast management, so I will get into that later. But what is the pinnacle episode? What is it? Something that could get someone started on 12 Cal? Where do you tell them start at episode one, or what is a pinnacle episode for you?
You know what? There's not really a seminal pinnacle episode. I think because I don't follow a format per se, and like there's no seasons, there's no series or anything like that. I think I know that there's one in particular that says, it's the name of it's called "Allow Me to Reintroduce Myself," and that just basically tells you who I am, and I give you a synopsis of who I am if you want to know about me personally. But I think what happens is that the more and more you listen to the podcast, you get to know me a little bit more. And then one of my main goals is, when I'm talking on the podcast, I want to bring people in the room. So like if you're on my podcast, JR, I want people to feel like when they're listening and they're in their car, or they're going on a walk on a trail, that they feel like they're in the same room having that conversation, whether or not we're talking about hip hop, whether or not we're talking about relationships, or whatever the case may be, or anything. So that's my goal for the listener. But there's no one particular episode. You can really, and I say this confidently and arrogantly, modestly, arrogantly, I should say. You can literally spin the wheel and pick one. You ain't gonna find a whack one. I promise you
Okay,
that.
okay, I like that. Now, what drives you to keep podcasting? Because everyone knows me, I'm a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
They call me the podcast executive, the living legend, Larry Sabisco, aka the Intercontinental Champion of podcasting. But you, for instance, like it's amazing what you do. Like if I had the structure that you do, even though you say you don't have structure, I would be a billionaire in podcasting.
Yeah, it's just the joy of it. I mean, like it's like, again, when you're somebody who creates content, these conversations that happen on the podcast are conversations that I think would happen any other time. I just invited you in. So if I'm talking about It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy, I'm giving you my thoughts on that particular album. And what I'm doing is letting you particularly you, someone like you, JR, maybe you weren't around when the album came out. Maybe you were a baby. Maybe you never heard it before. And the thing that I love is that a lot of times people, particularly people younger than me, I'm 51, people will come back and say, well, you know what, man, I never heard that album before, man, but after hearing your podcast, it made me go and listen to it, man. This is a dope album. And so like, that's the thing that I'm trying to do, but it's the love for creating something and feeling like, okay, hey, I got something to create. Cause I think when you're a creator, there's something in you that's pushing you and it's constantly pushing you. And so you want to keep moving. So it's something inside that just keeps pushing you.
Now, I got to ask you this because this is we're doing this for TikTok, but you know me because I'm always doing this evergreen content. And this is actually a test run that we're doing that will be on there, but this has turned into a podcast episode too in one instance. This is the first time I've actually had you on a solo end, so I'm not going to mess up the moment. This is still a TikTok episode, but we'll go through other things. How do you keep your content evergreen? Now, let me give you a synopsis for evergreen. Evergreen, I understand the experiences you go through, but the music, but the way that you and Eclectic go back and forth about it. Because he's on some backpack rapper stuff sometimes. And then he's on some other stuff. And then he's on some stuff that makes me in the game want to go find it. And you, for instance, like you keep a smooth profile about it. Like the stuff that you said about Heavy D and everything that went on, like that hooked me. I was like, wow, this man was right there in the time. And you understood the persuasion of his music. Like it was about being smooth, but he didn't use foul language.
Right.
And it was just something that was just smooth. And then certain times you just share different portions of your life. You talk about your family, you talk about your mother, you share greatly about her. And I want to know this about your mother real fast. So we can just throw this in there for the long episode when this comes out. How much of an inspiration has she been and will be in the future for you inside podcasting? Like what chops does she give you, you know, to get to be a podcaster? Because you do speak highly of her.
Oh yeah, I mean that's mom. She's got a gift of gab just like I did. So it's whatever I got it from her. But I think one of the things is she was the first, and I never forget when I was 8 years old, she said, "You can do whatever you want to do because you are the best," and she really meant that. So I mean like to put that battery in the back of an 8-year-old child. And so like you really felt that way. So even when you're doing something like geometry, which I know I ain't the best at, she reminded me. She constantly reminds me. And even to this day, she still tells me that. So it's like to have that kind of inspiration as opposed to some who may have had a parent figure, be very negative. I always got that positive. So even when I got in trouble, it was still positive behind it. So yeah, she's the GOAT, man. She's the GOAT, greatest of all time.
And the thing is you were also an athlete, but let me spin this back to the Tavis Smiley type question real quick. One thing about you that keeps you in my nucleus is you can tell when you hear you talk and you just hear how you speak about family and everything else that you grew up in a home, you didn't grow up in a house. And that is something that in this dynamic and age, like people grow up in way too many houses and no homes. And you come from a place that was centered around love. No matter where you had to go or move around through life, you had athletes around you. You had, figures around you that helped you in yourself. You were a collegiate athlete yourself. So you strived the pinnacle and you went to an amazing university, which let's give them a shameless plug real quick.
South Carolina State University.
What you got for us to see?
The helmet.
Okay.
Yeah.
HBC all day.
Yeah, HBCU all day.
Yeah. So what was it like transitioning? Because I do got to get this out the way. What was it like transitioning from being an athlete to the day that you stopped your athletics? That's what I always wanted to ask someone because I know what it was like for me, but what was it like for you?
Actually it was difficult, but it was also easy at the same time. Where it was difficult because you missed the camaraderie of the locker room. Anybody to tell you that came up in our era playing football, I mean, that locker room was a sacred place. But I think the biggest thing was trying to, because football brought out the competitiveness. And so now I had to channel that competitiveness somewhere else. So it was going to be in the classroom. It was going to be eventually in business. It was going to be, in whatever I chose to do with my life. And that competitiveness and that fire still goes. But you have to channel it differently. Now you're not running out trying to knock down a 225-pound, free safety. Now it's about whatever business moves you make. It's about whatever you do as far as attracting a young lady or whatever you're trying to do as far as like building a family, building, generational wealth, that type of stuff. So it's all of that included. But I mean, I think for me, the transition wasn't hard because I mentally prepared myself for it. It was different. And but once I got there, I was there.
Okay. See, and I like that because that right there is refreshing. And that's the gold part in the episode and what we do in West Virginia Complex. You just became very personable right there. So thank you for that. Now, there's a segment in this show that I pay homage to a news magazine. And that news magazine is 2020. David Stossel was a comedic relief. Diane Sawyer was poignant with her interviews, but Barbara Walters would come on about 10:45, 10:47, and she would interview people in a way that either the newscast would not come on to 11:05 or it wasn't that great. They cut her at 11 o'clock. And you know exactly what I'm talking about because you came up in that time too.
Yep.
So 12 Cal, are you ready for your 2020 questions?
Let's do it.
All right. So you're a podcaster, you're established, and by your peers, and me being one of your peers, and a lot of us being your peers, we consider you one of the best out there in what you do and how you deliver. So this is the hardest question for you. I need your top 5 podcasts.
Top 5 podcasts. In no particular order. QLS, Questlove Supreme. Love that. If you're a music nerd like me, you'll love that podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Okay.
Sports, man, listen, Bo is somebody that I look up to and been rocking with for a long time. Number 3, ooh, that's tough. And I'm trying to stay away from our peers because if you pick one, somebody will, man, you ain't pick my podcast. I mean, I got to go with Eclectic. The EDP. Well, he's got 2 podcasts. The Eclectic Discussion podcast and Encyclopedia Hip Hop. He's definitely one of my peers. He's one of my boys. And we've gotten very tight over these years that we've been doing it. Man, you said so. That's 3. 4. Damn, that's a good question. I gotta go with formerly of the Frocast, Pod and Saved Our Marriage, King Germ. King Germ and Queen Germ. Pod and Saved Our Marriage. Because I think one thing that really people don't get, and I get, is you hear the dynamics between not only between husband and wife, but between friends. And there's been times, and I've talked to him about this off air, there's been times where he said things on that podcast as a husband that got him in trouble when they stopped recording that episode.
Yes.
But because they're friends, they were able to kind of, get through it or whatever like that. And I think one of the things that is very impressive is that, and I heard Queen Germ say this, the name actually fits. Podden definitely saved their marriage. Right. And I think that speaks volumes to, because we know King Germ as the funny guy, crazy guy. He's always talking to us and all the stuff like that. And Queen Germ, she put up with a lot of stuff with King Germ. At least that's the way it appears. But I think they have a great relationship. My next one is probably this podcast doesn't exist anymore. They stopped doing it. The Tactless Know-It-Alls. Man, listen, Tactless Know-It-Alls, same thing, husband and wife combo, and the best of friends. I actually know them personally, got a chance to hung out. They live here in Atlanta. We've hung out. Great people, even greater they're dynamic, and like we've recorded. They're one of the only podcasts where I've actually gone to their house and we actually recorded episodes.
Okay.
And man, listen, when that mic comes on, man, I mean the you can see the magic. Great people. Is that 5? I think that should be 5.
That's 5. One thing I'm gonna throw in here real quick about King Germ and Queen Germ. Mm-hmm. There was a 12th episode on Pod and Saved Our Marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there was only one person that was a guest that's ever been a guest on that show.
Yeah, that's right.
That's you with your $1 billion power. Just taking over things. Now let's move on to another question. Now you podcast with people, you meet different cultures. Like you align yourself with all kinds of stuff. Like you keep your show fresh. I like what you do. I'm a little bit more commercial, a little more tactful in some other areas. But the thing that just like every week with your show is like the episode that you normally do is cool, but that one you throw on Sunday, that shit is like liquid crack.
Which one?
The extra bonus episode.
The bonus. Okay, gotcha.
Because the difference in it for me as a listener is even though you say you're not structured, when you do your normal show,
Mm-hmm.
it's got a format to it.
Okay.
It's called I'm gonna deliver, and if eclectics on it, it's going back and forth banter.
Mm-hmm.
But your call to action is let me hit you with the nostalgia, let me hit you with a little reason in between it, and let me give you the finish off with my why. That's you. That's breaking down the format.
Okay.
That's the business person in me talking to you. But those bonus episodes, just like you just turn on the mic and you didn't write nothing down. You may not write nothing down for other shows,
I don't.
but
I don't.
yeah, I'm just saying. Sometimes I think you write a little note, or you have.
Well, no, you know what? It's I have a it's what I learned when I was in high school. In high school, and I don't mean to ramble, but in high school we used to, for English class, you had to do what we call a jot list. So if you were writing a paper, you had to jot down your points. And so like I don't write what I'm gonna say. I just write the point. So if I'm interviewing JR and I'm like, okay, you know, like let's say I want to ask you about growing up in Morgantown. So I'll just put Morgantown. And then my questions will derive from there. I don't write like, hey, well, where did you go to high school at in Morgantown? I don't do that because it's just I don't want it again. I don't want it. It may sound structured. It didn't feel like it's structured, but I want the conversation to flow. I want it to be a conversation. I wanted to make people feel like they're sitting in the room with me and you and we're talking.
Organic.
Mm-hmm. Very much
So
so.
one other thing that I will tell you that you and King Jerome have, and this is outside of the 2020 questions, is you all come from, and I'm from this last generation of this, the 80s people are. We were taught to do things in formulas.
Mm-hmm.
We put two things together and then that's how we do equations and then we get an answer.
Most definitely.
The difference in other podcasters, like younger podcasters, they're taught process. So they're taught an assembly line how to do this. Da, 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 da. And that's the difference in what you do and what he does. And that's what, like, when I hear that, I'm like, yo, this is what I was taught in school. Because
Mm-hmm.
now math is taught in processes. It goes down like that.
Yes,
And that
yes.
is something that people they get mad at me when I say that, but I said it's the truth. The children today are not taught to formulate. They're taught to just run a process.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you for that. Now let's go into a hard hitting question.
Okay.
Making an episode, you know, you make it for collective, it's going to be perfect. But sometimes you make shows and you go back and check them out. I don't know if you edit them or not. They sound good, so I don't know.
No,
You might just let one take them. But
that's it.
has there ever been a time that you had to throw an episode away?
Yes. Yes. The episodes that I've thrown away obviously never made it to air. I sometimes if I get a chance, I will record episodes. Like I have ideas, and I'm sure you do the same thing. I have ideas, and then like let's say I get an idea to do an episode, and I'm like, okay, well, and today's Friday, and then Saturday comes. I'm like, okay, I'll record that on Saturday, and then I record it. I don't go back and listen to. I mean, I put my music and stuff behind it, but I don't edit. What you hear is what you get. So if I stumble over a word, damn it, that's what it is. so we ain't. I'm not cutting and paste. I ain't got time for all that. But what I will do is if I go back and if for some reason I recorded it on Saturday and I don't feel it, like it doesn't feel good when I stop recording, I won't use it. That's happened a couple of times. In fact,
Okay.
I just recorded an episode on it was on what was it about? Waiting or something like that. And when I finished, I was like, that felt kind of forced. And then I only played 5 minutes of it. I played five. I was like, nah, this ain't it.
So what happens to these episodes? Are they deleted or do they sit in the archive?
Deleted.
Wow.
There's nothing I'm gonna do with them.
Now
You know what,
see,
Jr.
go ahead.
I mentioned this on episodes before, and I think it's worth repeating. I somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna treat these episodes like songs, like an artist with a song. And sometimes you know, artists might. I'll use Prince since he's the GOAT. You may say, look at y'all's face. You may say, well, you know what? Hey, I'm going to start writing a song, and then maybe you might stop, and you might because that may be the idea, and you might stop at that particular idea and then be done with it, and then you might have to come back to it, and then sometimes you might be like, you know what? I don't like that, and then sometimes you may write it down and you may nail it. So I just from that point on, I started treating them like songs, and basically that's how I flow with these episodes. They're like songs, and so when I start on it, you know, I'm working on one now for tomorrow's episode, and you know, I just got to put the tracks on it. But it's once it gets out, I'm cool. I mean, once I'm done, I'm cool. But until I
Okay.
get to that point, I'm done. Then you know, but it's no, I don't go through and try to change anything or take out a bad word or something like. No, I don't do any of that.
Now, yeah, I don't do distraction editing, but we actually did an episode, you, me, Rodis, and
Mm-hmm.
Dolomite. We were talking about Michael Jackson because we got to
Mm-hmm.
hear songs that Michael Jackson did not want coming off the cutting room
Yes,
floor.
yes, yes.
And that's my greatest example. But I like that they were archived because of the legacy that came from them. Because we listened to them, and you knew, because you're a music genius, you knew how
Mm-hmm.
to where they would go. We even said we would half that shit would probably be on '80s rom coms,
Right.
that because he was that good. And I know Princess stuff that we've never heard that sits
Mm-hmm.
in the archive. That what is it in when he in Minnesota, wasn't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, there's somewhere locked up in Minnesota with some big timber trees around it. Nobody's ever going to hear it, except maybe his children if he has any. Um, And that's one thing I like. I'm a little different. What I do is, 'cause, I'm a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
I keep all that stuff, the episodes that aren't coming out, because I've got some that I release with people. Because I'm out here, I'm a wrestler too.
Mm-hmm.
So I start feuding with somebody. The episode might not come out at all. you know, you might look down the road and you might say something wrong about Bret Hart or somebody, and next thing you know, your show ain't coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Rude or any of them, that's King Germ. I don't care if you talk about them, but or don't say nothing about Magnum TA because he will get really offended.
Magnum
Yeah.
TA.
Yeah, Magnum TA. So I keep my stuff because I'm like, man, if I get enough fans one day, I'm gonna release this stuff to them privately and let them hear what the bad stuff is. I said,
Oh
I don't. I
man.
want to keep a record of it because I will know never to do that again.
No, I feel like just for me, if it's mistakes in it, if it's something, or if it's not something I'm just not feeling, I'm not gonna put it out. I just can't put it out. Now I will say, and you mentioned Uncle Dolomite from Too Much Game podcast. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
He said something on an episode once. He said like we've all put out trash episodes. I have not put out a trash episode, but I've had trash moments. There's a difference. We all have. We all have.
I don't know. I have to admit, some of the stuff that I put out, the stuff that I do on the weekends is good. The stuff that I put out Thursday, that's business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not in that niche and I'm not marketing to you, I always tell my listeners, you got to stay away from Thursday sometime. You can listen to the weekend. If you hear the weekend episode, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm talking about my nostalgia that I talk about. I talk about TV
Mm-hmm.
shows, the rise and fall. I tell you about the destruction because that's what I love in television,
Okay.
destruction.
Okay.
Except that I ain't never done an episode on the Jetsons because I'm not gonna give them any respect. How you last only one season, but everybody loves you like a cult classic. That's another story for another day. Now, your last question is how these 2020 questions, and this is the hard hitting Barbara Walters question.
Okay.
What has been your biggest defeat? Not loss. What has been your biggest defeat in podcasting?
Biggest defeat.
Yes.
There hasn't been any.
Oh, I'm gonna give you a second to think about that. I'm gonna give you some filler here. I'll tell you my biggest defeat, and then
Okay.
you can go circle back around.
Okay.
My biggest defeat in podcasting has been this. I can reach my audience. If a person decides to, because it's not a phone call, it's basically yelling across the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and you hope to get something back.
Right.
My biggest defeat is some of the people that I thought that I would hear back from, I never heard back from, or never heard anything from. And then the most amazing thing in podcasting is through that defeat, I find these new people in all these crazy places. Um, and I'll just tell a quick story about this. So
Mm-hmm.
I realized I was at a funeral not too long ago.
Okay.
And I'm at my family member's funeral, but it's like a family member away. Like they were married in and married an uncle and then they passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I go to this funeral and I haven't seen any of these people for like 15, 20 years. I'm only 38, but when I disappear from people's life, I live in West Virginia. It's hard to come out the
Right.
mountains. When I come out, I'm out for 6 months and then I go back in the mountains.
Right.
So these people are telling me that they listen to my show. They're like, hey, we like episode this one, that one. Then they tell me this one was dumpster juice because you're the king of curation, but sometimes you don't want to curate. We know when
Mm-hmm.
you're tired because you don't curate. And I was like, wow, you picked all this up. I said, I never knew any of y'all listen. So that took away that defeat from me. But the biggest defeat for me is that the people that I was expecting to listen, they just turned the cheek and went on to 12 Cal or Uncle Dolomite show.
Right. You know what, man? I still say there hasn't been and the reason why I say there hasn't been any defeats. There's been moments where, like I say, where I've had trash moments, where I've had audio issues. That right there is a defeat for me, having audio issues. Because I want this thing to sound like how it's supposed to sound. I can't tell you, and I'm sure you know because you listen to podcasts. I can't tell you how many podcasts I've turned on and turned off because the audio is bad.
Right.
I mean, if the audio's bad, or if you got 5 people and everybody's talking at the same time and I can't distinguish any of the voices or anything. No, I don't want to hear that. I can go outside for that. So
Right.
So no, I think the biggest thing for me is kind of like piggybacking off what you said. When I created this, I didn't get into it for fanfare. I didn't get into it for, a whole bunch of other ancillary stuff. I came in and shout out to my man D Murph from what's D Murph's podcast? Anyway, I'll think of it in a second. Can't believe I drew a blank. D Murph asked me, he said, "Man, what do you want to do with this podcast?" I said, "I just want to make dope shit. That's it." And every time, now there's no perfect episode. You're always going to fumble on something, and maybe audio might be slightly higher on this particular song or something like that. But it's I never reached out like that. Now I do know what you mean as far as like wanting people to listen, because obviously you want people to listen. But I think the thing that kind of bugs me out sometimes, man, is particularly like if I go to my hometown, and because I live in Atlanta, but I'm from Florence, South Carolina.
Okay.
And so when I go to my hometown, to hear people say, "Man, I heard your podcast, such and such," and I'm looking like, "You listen to that? You listen to my podcast?" Like, because here's the thing, once I put it out, I don't know who's gonna listen, and
Right.
I think there's some beauty in that. And so, like, even for the longest time, like, people would say, "Hey, well, give me your comments, your feedback." I never asked for feedback, and the reason why, because I didn't care. I mean, I still don't care, but I mean, if you want to leave feedback, cool. But I didn't care because it genuinely, I never said, "Hey, go on iTunes and leave a 5-star review." No, I didn't want to do that because, one, I didn't need you to validate me in what I said, because I know when I put it out, it was dope. And I will, again, modestly speaking, I will put my podcast up against anybody. I'm not in competition with anybody, but I'll put my record and what I've done. I'll put it up against Joe Budden, Joe Rogan, Joe Schmo. It don't matter. It don't matter. I know that I'm doing something dope. And you mentioned evergreen earlier. One of the reasons why I keep it evergreen is that I want people to be able to, if there's somebody watching this, somebody can go to episode 1, you can go to episode 250, you can go to episode 305, and you not feel like the information, because none of the information is dated. Now, if I was talking about, what happened,
Current events.
Yeah, if I talked about current events, what happened on the Housewives or LeBron when he got dunked on, I mean, that's cool for the moment. But what I found, JR, is it's never been for me. I don't knock anybody that does it, but my thing is this: if you talk about Puff, and King Germ's on his podcast, he talks about Puff, and Dolomite talks about Puff, and Baylor talks about Puff, then those are 4 of my favorite podcasts. I mean, what is nobody's going to hear me talk about Puff. So it was just important for me just to make dope content that was evergreen, that somebody could pick it up, whether or not it's episode 5 or episode 500, and feel like they didn't miss anything, and they felt like they were in the room.
And see, I appreciate that in podcasting because, like I said, like with the structure, that's what I had to do. Because, like, I was like, I do society culture, but I don't do anything that's time stamped. Because I said I'm out here like Tupac. Like my podcast is really done until 2025. I just do extra shows because I put them in. I curate. I want a certain level, and like keeping up with current events and stuff like that. You got CNN and headline news for that, so you don't need to hear that from the Shade Room. Yeah, and
TMZ.
Yeah, and definitely Shannon Sharp now.
Right.
Right. So, or Shay, whatever he's calling himself now.
Club Shay.
But yeah, so that was crazy too. I'm gonna have to do a little thing, get a group podcast about that. And one thing that I liked about you, and it's another man, he lives up in the mid-Atlantic. He's from a place called Maryland, but let me say it right, Merlin. James Lampkin.
Man, I talked to Lamp today. I called him.
I just talked to him before we got on here because
Okay.
I was gonna get him to come through on something later. Like, because I said I'm wild when I do these shows because I make a posse.
You know what I call him? You know what I call him? CNN
what?
Lamp. Because he sounds like he works for CNN.
Don't he?
He has the perfect interview style that like I'd ever seen or heard before. He literally should be on CNN for real.
Right. And there's something about him. And with me, this is something I throw out there to everybody. I'm very selective on the shows that I do. I only do 10 podcasts a year. And anybody that needs to know the reason behind that, they know because of the way that I do my branding. I'd rather
Mm-hmm.
have you come on my show and we learn about 12 count, and then you go back into the distance, and then I'll sail you up the river or make money with you or whatever I got to do. Because I used
Yeah,
to be
don't sell me up the river.
right. I used to be Diddy podcasting, but we don't say that no more. But the thing is that like with Lamp, I've done his show twice,
I heard it.
and it's like with him, he can get the powerful shit out of me,
Yes.
and
And
it's like man. And like he's gonna come through and do the TikTok thing because he was
mhm.
interested in it too. And I told him like we were gonna schedule it like after yours, but he's busy. And then we started talking about the weekend. And one thing that all of us are connected on is college and NFL football
Oh yeah.
and high school football to a degree.
Same.
Obviously, you know, football determines how these podcasts come out up
Same.
until the Super Bowl's done.
Yes. 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 With the frequency. I mean, like, there were points in time where like people would tell me, oh, well, hey, well, we can record. Like I would reach out to somebody to record with me. Well, hey, Thursday works for me. And I'm like, and I'd have to go look at my phone to see who's playing Thursday night. Because if it was a good game on, I'm like, Thursday night's no good. We got to do Friday, like that. So yeah,
Right.
I totally, yeah. And recording on a Sunday, nah.
Right. It's never gonna happen.
Never.
And I tell people, I was like, that's the most disrespectful thing. Now with me, because of my fiance and different things like that, Thursdays are never a good day for me because I have to watch Grey's Anatomy. That's the one thing that I'm obligated to do in life. Um, and it's not because she's white or anything. That's just her show. Everybody they clown me about that because they call me what do they call me? Stanley from Friday. They say stay the fuck off his grass. Because they say even though you country and stuff, they said you're extra civilized. Yeah, Stanley all day. So on that one, I that's my day. And then for football, and then obviously everybody knows about wrestling. The pay-per-views went from Sunday to Saturday. So I just tell people, man, during basketball, I'm cool. NBA Finals, leave me alone. I want to see what's going to happen there. All-Star game, I give respect to that. Now Major League Baseball, that's another one. When it gets close to the pennant time, because it's a lot of games in baseball.
162.
Right. So I can lose a few of those. I don't,
yeah.
And either way, that's one thing right there. The sports connect all of us because everybody knows that I follow natural loser teams. I am a New York Jets fan. And
I don't know why you do it to yourself, man.
But I explained it to you. And one thing I like to say about this, because I did this, we're rambling real quick, is this season, we didn't waste a playoff spot. We beat the Patriots, so we won our Super Bowl. That's all we needed. We beat some other guys, didn't we? You know who else we beat this year?
Who the Jets only won like 4 games, right?
Did we not beat y'all?
I don't think y'all beat the Giants.
I
can look it up. I don't
look it up in your Rolodex real quick or on your machine.
Let's see.
Because I do remember the Battle of New York. Now we don't count Buffalo because Buffalo is just trash.
Yeah, but Buffalo destroyed y'all.
Yeah, Buffalo killed us. Or no, not the first game. Did they not?
Let's see.
Yeah. The Jets was pretty decent, but
I mean, what? I mean, in all fairness, the Jets season really ended when Rodgers got hurt. So I mean,
4 seconds into the season,
I mean, it's crazy.
But the amazing thing about you, King German, and everybody else, we can all respect that time, except for Dolomite. That's one thing I do got to put in this podcast. Dolomite, for some reason, he does that show on Sunday, and I try to give him his respect, and I'll troll, and I'll pop in real quick, and then I'll pop back out.
Mm-hmm.
He always does it during prime football, so that's one thing that gets me there.
Well, he don't watch football, so I mean,
right?
That's why I get in there. I'll get in. I'm usually his comes on when I'm usually eating dinner. So if I don't, I'll pop in and I'll stay in there for a little bit and then I'll jump out. But I always go back and listen to the episode on Monday.
Right. Yeah. And see, that's what I do with him. I say you can do that live stuff all day long, but I'd rather I'll listen to your show because you put the bells and whistles in it, and I get the full message. Now, let me ask you this.
We did lose to the Jets. My bad. Damn.
Right. Yeah.
13-10. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we beat the teams we needed to beat this year. Did we not beat Dallas? And Dallas beat us.
Yeah.
We beat the Eagles. That was our Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
And the Eagles is another team that wasted a playoff spot.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Yeah. Last weekend, I'm gonna be honest with you. I hate to throw this in this episode, but last weekend in playoffs, it hurt me. Not about the Cowboys, but everybody else that lost. Like,
didn't make no sense. Y'all beat the Eagles. Y'all beat the Eagles 20-14. You lost to the Cowboys, but
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we beat the team we thought was gonna go on the NFC side.
Right.
So we had a good season for us. We only needed to win in 4 games. Yep. But anyway, enough about that. Like, Now, I'm gonna move over to a segment that I have killed off from my show. We used to do these episodes with other podcasters called
Mm-hmm.
Podcast Collide. And the reason that I killed that off is because when I would do it with people, if they were like your show's strong enough, I wish I had met you back then. Your show's strong enough to go with mine. So we're doing them, and I would ask questions about your podcasting process to them, but your podcast formulation.
Mm-hmm.
That we would lose listeners somewhere because they would listen to your tactics and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm down with the 12 cal weight." But then when you hear the West Virginian common way, you're like, "I don't know if I like that." He's Southern, but he's the Mason Dixon line, so it's kind of crazy. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions from this so that you can help other podcasters because that's one thing that we always want to aspire to do and to help the fledgling ones that are coming up and for them to produce great content because, like I said, it doesn't matter about your age; it matters about your extent of your wisdom, and your wisdom is what gives you the excellence that you have in podcasting. Now, what would be the first advice that you would give to a new podcaster?
Definitely stay consistent. If you want to have people listening to your podcast, you have to be consistent. I mentioned earlier my episodes drop on Thursdays, and then sometimes we do bonus episodes on Sundays. I want you to know every Thursday that there's going to be an episode. Midnight Eastern time, there's going to be an episode. Now, most time, I mean, sometimes it's 1:00, depending on what I'm doing at that particular night, but it's going to be nonetheless. When you wake up Thursday morning, there's going to be an episode. And I think what happens is I'm a podcaster, but I'm also a listener. So we get into habits and routines of listening to our podcast at a certain time. I mentioned Uncle Dolomite. I listen to him on Mondays. He's a part of my Monday rotation. So I have a rotation. I want people to have me in their rotation. And you can't be successful with your podcast if you're not consistent. So if I say, okay, well, I drop on Thursday, and then you show up on Thursday and I'm not here, and then you show up the next Thursday, I'm still not here. Then you show up on the next Thursday and I drop on Tuesday. After that, you're like, okay, well, where is it? I don't know when this guy's dropping. I think that's a level of you have to be consistent. And the reason why I say even like for the bonus episodes, I didn't want to commit to dropping a bonus episode every Sunday because, if you tell people it's going to be there, it's going to be there. So, but most Sundays there is a bonus episode. So, but I don't want to, I never say, oh, well, I'm dropping 2 episodes every week. It may evolve to that because I honestly, JR, I have enough content to do so. So I'm not running out of content. The day that I run out of content will be the day I hang up this microphone.
Okay.
Honestly, I always got something to talk about.
And I like that. Now, me on the other hand, like everybody knows about me, I record like Tupac. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that I have stash episodes, and what I decided on was I was like, this is my one lane. I'm a video gamer, and I know television. I'm cinematic too, and everybody knows I'm the projector man. So, and that's movie projectors, people, not the projector man. Because if I was a projector man, I wouldn't be here right now. I'll be trying to sell y'all something in a TED talk. Now. My thing is like with you, like with that Sunday, like you said, it doesn't matter necessarily about the consistency of that, but that Thursday episode is always there. Mm-hmm. And I like that. So here's my next question. Do you approve of people here's one context I want to put this in. We've already established like you create evergreen content that's not time sensitive. Sort of, we do the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. I don't make something that has to do with whatever. Now there some bad video games get remade. I might do something about them, but that's not time sensitive. That's just telling you not to waste your money on something that you got in your collection. Now, do you have an issue with someone that batch records, or do you think that batch recording is a way to save yourself, over time?
You mean as far as like recording a bunch of episodes at one time and then release them all at the same time, or releasing?
No. Releasing them in the set order. I don't believe in that releasing content crazy because I know certain podcasters. There's one podcaster I know. When we were cool, he released an episode every single day.
Well, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but the thing about that, and it's the same goes for social media. You start feeding that monster, you got to keep feeding that monster. And most people can't keep up with that. And people get, it's just like, like we mentioned, like the TMZs. TMZ can give you that type of content because it's daily and there's always some shit happening in the world, right? ESPN can do that because there's always sports, even when in downtime. But just a regular 9 to 5 podcaster, you could do a podcast every day, but the thing is that your audience is going to keep needing that information. and it's hard to because you got to keep feeding that beast. And one of the podcasts I used to listen to, I don't listen to him anymore, but Joe Budden, his podcast, particularly when he had Rory and Mal, they used to do. I think they went from at one point in time they were doing one episode, then they were doing like 2 episodes a week, and it seemed to me like on that second episode, particularly after they got their contract, it sounded to me at times like they were just kind of there just to say something, and it's not really wasn't really a lot of content coming in. And the thing is, they probably were running out of things to talk about because, again, if you're talking twice a week, you're running out. You at some point, you in that particular content game, you may run out of things to talk about. So I don't have a problem with people if somebody said, okay, well, hey, I want to do a podcast every day. That's just tough because over a period of time, you can burn yourself out because you just, life happens. I mean, we record on certain days. We try to get things done. I try to make sure that my episode is up and running and well, running and well and ready at midnight. But if I go out of town, that might be something different. I may have to record instead of recording on Tuesday. I may have to record on Monday. I may have to record Wednesday night. It just depends. I mean, so it's and like I'll give you an example. Like I was actually supposed to the episode that I'm going to drop tomorrow at the time of this recording is not an episode that I was going to drop it 2 weeks from now. I'd already had it recorded. I just needed to add the tracks. But what happened was the episode that I originally was going to drop tomorrow, we were going to record tonight, but my guest had something come up and he hit me up earlier today and said, hey, I can't record tonight. Can we record next week? So we're recording next week. So, but you got to be flexible. But yeah, it's all about consistency, man. If you're not consistent, and like I said, I don't knock anybody who would try to do that, but that's a tall task, man. At some point, you look around, it's April and you put out, a couple of, a whole bunch of episodes. It's like, okay, well, is it working? Or am I just punching the air? You know what I'm saying? So that's tough.
Right, and I agree with you on that because so like with me, for instance, like us doing this show, it started off as just TikTok, then it turned into a podcast because I was like, I've got 12 Cal here. When am I gonna get him back here again? And I was like, not
necessarily. Hey, all you gotta do is say the word. You ain't even say that. You just say, yeah, I thought we were gonna have a meeting or something.
No, I just said we was gonna come through, and I knew that we was gonna do a podcast. I didn't know it was gonna go this long. And the thing was, I had to do that because I had to remember I'm a prima donna, when it comes to recording. And since I have so much stuff, there's not very many people I want to work with beyond because I do the posse cuts. I like to get that wrestling stuff out there, and I want to get the sports and everything. And to schedule those things, I like to schedule that. We talked about Thriller probably a month and a half. It took a long time to get it together. It
was about 2 months at least.
Yeah, 2 months. But when it came out, that was evergreen content. Then it was re-released by Rodis, which was wild. And then the YouTube video came out. And then at some point, I'm gonna chop it up one more time because I got to bring some of y'all back for another edition because that's stuff that come in on Showtime about Thriller. I know everybody's seen it by now.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. Is it out?
You ain't seen it? Yeah, it's already out.
Okay, no, I saw the trailer.
It dropped in like Thanksgiving. I'm the bootleg king, so I got it on bootleg, and it is on a Google Drive if anybody wants it, just holler at me. Or I didn't really say that. Don't come get me MPA too many times with that. But anyway, yeah, scheduling and stuff is like I gotta when I'm in the mood and like I'm working with the new technology. So we sat here, got chopped it up, try to get these little microphones to work right. And our next conquest in podcasting, and this is what I like about you is you're a visionary. You have been doing the video podcast, and everybody knows that I'm the TikTok king. I'm out there on TikTok. Like right now, I'm on my H-Town thing with the pictures and doing the little stories. So I'm doing that right now because I'm trying to drive in a certain audience that I didn't have, and I hate to do that, but I got to do it because
got to do it.
Yeah, it's something. And you notice I was choicy about some of the songs I played, and I mean I'm going back a little bit. Only thing I'm not going to do is Bobby Womack, which I need to get. I need to get you. I need to throw this in here real quick, and this is a side note because everybody knows I ramble on my show. I need you to do the ultimate Bobby Womack podcast. You and the collective can do it because y'all
Bobby
can go
Womack
back.
Was a hater.
Yeah, but y'all need to do something and tell the most treacherous story in musical history of how he did Sam Cooke.
Man, listen, that was dirty business.
I'm gonna say this, and this will be on record forever. If someone had ever done that to me, and I'm rocking out in the afterworld, if you believe in that, I'm coming back. I'm coming back like Ghost Dad. I'm coming back like Ghost Dad. We ain't gonna mention who's in Ghost Dad because I respect him as an actor, what he did behind the scenes. But you remember Ghost Dad? I'm coming back like that, Mr. Cosby.
Oh, That he was in Ghost Dad?
Yeah, you gotta remember that was I want to say like he was in Meteor Man and stuff like that, but in my lifetime he wasn't in a lot of movies.
Leonard Six, hands down, was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It was god awful. God awful.
But yeah, I was
Get
like
him
the
out of
last
here.
time. Hey, listen, in all honesty, the last time I think I seen him in anything was Meteor Man.
I didn't even see that.
He was
All I remember was Leonard Six.
hold
And
on, man in time out on the field. Have you seen Meteor Man?
no. The look of dejection on your face.
You light skin, bro.
Hey man. Never seen it.
All right, one hold on. We're going off podcast collide. We're going into the third show that I'm part of with Stacy. It's called Sparrows Under Review. We review movies. I got to ask you some questions. Have you seen Mo Money?
Yeah.
Okay. Bulletproof.
Yes.
So you like Damon Wayans?
Yeah, Damon Wayans is funny. All of man, I rock
right.
with all the Wayans. Wayans.
All right. Name me 3 Robert Townsend movies besides Five Heartbeats.
What is it? I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Are you sure that was him or was that Keenan Ivory Wayans?
No, that was Keenan. What was the joint he was in?
It was a 1987 movie.
I might not be able to name 3. Let's see. Yeah, you got me on the spot. No, I probably can't name 3.
I can't name 3.
I've probably seen 3, but I can't name 3 off the top.
I can't name 3 either, but I can say Meteor Man. And what's the one in 1987? I was just talking to King Jerm about it. It was electric. Was it Electric Boogie? No. It was something with him and the lady from In the Heat of the Night.
Oh shit, you got me.
Yeah, it was from the 80s, but yeah, Robert Townsend, I'm sorry, bro. We know Five Heartbeats though.
Yeah, nice like this.
Yeah. Nice. All right, so here's the next one. This is a serious question. And I already know the answer to this, but I gotta put you on the spot about this. Name one movie that you will never see.
Oh, The Color Purple.
And I can agree with you on that.
Never gonna see it.
Yeah,
I've seen bits and pieces, but I'll never see it in its entirety. Never.
Right. And I will say on the record, just because we're going on in this episode, I did watch the one last night, and you have my permission. And most definitely, I will say this: because they took some of the harshness out, and it's kind of like a musical, which I'm not too good for musicals, but I'm light skinned, so I got to do that for the lights. And I hate to say that, but I watched it. Stacy enjoyed it. I liked it, but after seeing that first one, bro, no, never again in my life. Now I'll tell you one movie I've never seen: American History X.
I don't think I have either.
The one with the Nazis. Yeah, the one with the Nazis and black people. Us in it.
Yeah, I've heard of it, never seen it. But I'm not really. And my friends get on me a lot. I'm not really a movie guy. Like I love going to the movies, but like there's a bunch of movies that I haven't seen. In fact, there's a podcast coming, Jr. Black Movies You've Seen. That's okay. That's the title. It'll be out. I think it's a bonus episode. It'll be out by the end of the month.
Can't you just hold it till February?
Got to drop it because I'm on a schedule.
Because man, I'm gonna have to drop a sequel to that on my show or on. I'm gonna just make I make content for everybody. I'm gonna have to have one, and we're gonna have to put everybody on the. Yeah, but we're gonna have to have everybody on the spot about that because I'm really like King Germ says that our density as African American men is based on the movies we watch. And I said one thing, and this is a jab at him. He said The Wizard of Oz was better than The Wiz.
King Germ doesn't know what he's talking about.
And that's just something that
the man is delirious.
Right.
We've had this discussion several times. This man is delirious. He doesn't know any better. And it's crazy because he should know better, but he doesn't.
Right. And he's from Greensboro, North Carolina.
And he's supposed to be black. Right. And when he said it, I was like, I have a picture of you and I know what you look like. I said, but I don't know if you're black. Right. And I told Queen Turner, I said, I don't think you married a black man. I just told him.
And see, I joke and say he looks like the guy from Homicide, the TV show. And the guy from he's the same guy that played in Across 110th Street.
Oh, I know you're talking about.
And then I said the most disrespectful thing to him today. I said, you're either between Bruce Smith or Lawrence Taylor. You look like one of them. And he said, why do you say that? And then I said, you look like the Martin Luther King that was played in Selma. And he said that was all disrespectful. And I was like, nah, they're quality people. And then I said, at least I didn't say you look like somebody from Bamboozled or something.
Oh man, that's cold. Yeah, you're digging a bigger hole, man.
Right. So I was like, King Germ, just whatever. But anyway, back to you, 12 count. One last
Mhm.
thing that we do on this show, because I don't want to hold you up too long because it's 9 o'clock and I know that I get paid a certain allowance, so I have to do certain things, and I haven't done all the work I got to do. Not a simp or nothing, but you know how to keep the structure going. And I'm about to get married, so I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
I gotta keep the things going there.
Oh, you got to.
Um, yeah. So we do a shameless plug for the show. Now this shameless plug that you got to do this time is gonna be crazy. Do the shameless plug. Tell everybody where they can meet and greet you for your show, but then you got to do the outro of your show on this show so we can end it.
Okay. Where they can, you said meet and greet me. They can't greet me anywhere but on the on the internet. I mean, but if they're in Atlanta, you can always check me out. But yeah, make sure that you check out the 12 Kyle podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time, we drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight. Follow me on the socials at 12 Kyle on Twitter X, Instagram, at 12 Kyle podcast on Twitter X, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm going to tell you, I'm new to TikTok, the 12 Kyle podcast on TikTok. And yeah, like I said, podcast drops. Make sure that you listen to at least one episode. Yeah, I promise you. You listen to one, I promise you, you listen to another. So that's going to do it for us. So for my man JR, I am your boy 12 Kyle, and this has been another edition of a podcast that I just jumped on. We'll catch you guys
West
next time.
Virginia and Commonplace.
I didn't know which one you were putting it on, but we'll catch you guys next time. 5 Gs.